get some short games too, but I think overall it's going to be a pretty long day.
Yeah, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And this player, in the upper right, in the red, trying to make sure he actually sprints on into the playoffs and doesn't delay a little bit longer. He's playing for Dragon Kites of Gaming. It's Oliveira.
And his opponent in the top left-hand corner of Ghost River. That's map number 1 in this best of 3 series. We have Nanami. Njal already doing the great spins here, our dedicated observer for today.
That's nice. You know, I get to sit there. I get to sit back. I don't have to go observe everything and get chat all mad at me because I missed some drop. And it's not like, you know, you missed the climactic fight of the game. Like, who really cares, right, Loco? What matters is the paint that matters, right?
I usually notice, like, early on in a broadcast, my observing is pretty decent. But then as time goes by, I start missing the Widowmine drop that wins the game, right? You start making the critical errors, and yeah, it's just like playing StarCraft 2. The margin for error with observing is also very small, so you gotta be on point. And yeah, Njal obviously observed many tournaments over the years. He's gonna be our cameraman here.
Yeah, no, and he's pretty fantastic too. I don't know exactly what you're talking about, Loco. I clearly never make mistakes. I've never lost a game of StarCraft. I've never made an observing mistake, and we've never run into this issue where the wrong life bars are set up, so we're not seeing what's being produced. That never happens. And the game
At
goes
least
on.
you didn't click the quit game button. I've done that in the past where I'm turning on my health bars and then I quit game. I'm like, no, that is the only button I wasn't supposed to press.
Oh no.
It's very embarrassing. You try and do it as quickly as possible and you end up making it worse.
Yeah, and of course, Blizzard doesn't say it never saves your settings right. So it's like, you had normal turned on for like half a second to get a screenshot. That's it.
Yep. I know that feeling very well. So we do have the first Reaper going across the map right here for Oliveira. Ghost River, of course, a very quick rush distance overall. It's not just quick ground to ground, but especially air to air. I think it's the quickest rush distance on this map pool. You can get those units in very easily. Nanami, though, not opting to go for a Stargate here, going straight into that Twilight Council. So I think we're both expecting that this is going to be a blink opener for the Protoss. Of course, one of the most popular builds in this matchup. You can go 2 gateways, 3 gateways. If you're feeling ambitious, you can go 4 gateways too. The top tier Protosses make it look pretty straightforward whenever you go for a 4 gate, but everybody whose name is not Max Specs or Hero doesn't seem to have as much success with it.
Yeah, it's wild, right? You look at Max Specs, he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna win with a 4 gate, and then everyone else tries it, and they just get bopped. It's like, okay, clearly some of it's the control, but it's like, man, I don't. You understand. But anyways, this is a pretty good map to go for those higher gateway count setups, right? You talked about the rush distance being very short. You have a decent amount of space with your main base to be able to blink into and make that happen. Rotation's fine, but also it is one of those things where you look at the builds. There's a pretty early tank coming out of Oliveira here. In fact, we don't even, this is a 1 base all in coming out of Oliveira. There's no natural on the way, and Nanami, one of the reasons you go for this blink setup is to take a relatively quick 3rd base. It gives you that power. Unfortunately for Nanami, his opponent stand on 1 base. This is a little greedy.
Yeah, he certainly does not need a 3rd Nexus here. Shutting down this pylon actually is already incredible, because currently all of that production, including the blink research, is unpowered right now for the Protoss player. So that 3rd Nexus is definitely not going to happen. I'm sure Nanami is going to be canceling that in just a moment. But Oliveira, he's feeling like he can potentially just win the game right here, right now. I think if this would have been maybe 4 gateway blink, it would have looked a whole lot easier for Nanami, but he doesn't have a lot of unit production.
No, he's only sitting on 2 gateways for the moment, right? Going for that really economically greedy 2-gate expand that has fallen for the most part out of Protoss meta because of builds like this, because you have no pressure on the Terran player. The probes are going to get pulled. Nanami is just dead. Yeah, you know, we can talk about execution all we want, Loco, but at the end of the day, more than anything else, really, 2-gate blink against a 1 base all in generally is only going to go one way.
Yeah, he had vision of his opponent's natural expansion, so he knew that the natural wasn't taken yet. Obviously, 1 base all-ins in this matchup are relatively uncommon at the pro level, so I think he just assumed that there was a command center hiding somewhere in that main base, and he flipped the coin, and apparently it landed on making a 3rd Nexus. Turned out to be the wrong answer here. Unfortunately for him, though, because I think his setup overall was looking pretty solid. He was clearly expecting a straight-up macro game there from Oliveira, but yeah, not the case here. Just a good old one-base opener.
Yeah, you know, it works out. And I can see where Nanami might be thinking this would be something different. It's not uncommon to see a Terran player go put a barracks in the wall, build 2 supply depots, and it's just, yeah, they got the commencement on the high ground. Whatever, it's fine. You deal with it. That's probably the more common option. But in this case, you know, one base all in, tanks, marines, liberators. Nanami had no idea, and that ties into what you were saying, Loco, with how quick the rush distance is. Nanami realized about halfway across the map that something was happening. That's not enough time to respond. Not on this map.
No, and he didn't cancel the Nexus either, right? Obviously, in his mind, he didn't really need those additional minerals back because he couldn't really spend them anyways. I wonder if maybe he should have just insta-canceled it, though, and then tried to maybe put up some additional static defense if he really wanted to put up a fight. But overall, a little bit unfortunate, as we are going to be jumping into Oceanborn momentarily.
Potentially. We are remaking the map, so I don't know if that's because we're on the wrong server.
Maybe it was the wrong map. Yeah, it could be.
You know, it's going to be we're going to figure it out at some point. Don't know what's happening. Game 2 is going to be coming soon, and it will, in fact, be Oceanborn. So Loco did not lie to you all. It's important. He would never lie to you about anything.
The audience. No, I never lied to the audience. I would never do such a thing.
Absolutely not. But yeah, so Oceanborn Game 2, it's still a pushable map, but it's not nearly as fast as Ghost River is. So what do you think? 1 base, 2 base? Oliveira, now that he's got his +1 map, he's like sitting there, he's like, I'm really comfortable. I'm gonna play a little bit more standard, or does this maybe expose some weaknesses in Nanami's play that he's gonna, you know, drive in once again? So yeah, this is gonna be a very quick series.
We'll have to see, I guess, right? Like Oliveira going for a 1 base all in, like almost in a way, right? Obviously it won him the game, but almost in a way it feels a little bit disrespectful, right? Like you look at your opponent, you're like, you know what? I am just going to do a cheeky little 1 base all in. It's something every Protoss player learns to counter early on in their laddering career, but sometimes it's one of those builds that gets brought back and you're not quite prepared for it. Now, here we go. Game number 2. Best of 3 series. Spawning right here in the bottom right-hand corner. It's Oliveira. The Red.
And in the upper left, he's playing for Mystery Gaming. Down 1. It's Nanami.
It's going to be a little bit intimidating as well, right? Going up against the world champion. It's one of those things where you can prepare, you can scan their replays, and you can really, think about your build orders for a long while. But in the end, you just still have to play against one of the best players in the world. And it's going to be a little bit intimidating at the very least.
Yeah, again, and is Oliveira the reigning? He is the reigning world champion, but is he
technically? Yes,
technically true. Katowice didn't count this year, but is Oliveira of the level of the reigning world champion? Right? Is he at the level that he was playing in Katowice back in 2023? No.
Well, we talk about that miracle run so much, right? Like that miracle run, just thinking about it gives me nerd chills because he ended up having a weekend that nobody in StarCraft 2's history has ever really matched. I don't think Oliveira is quite at the level of, for example, a Clem, right? Or, for example, a Maru, if we're talking Terran players. Cero ended up winning Katowice this year, of course, but he's not participating in this event. And this time around, we have the World Cup that's going to be taking place later this year. Who will decide who's the current world champion. So technically speaking, since, it's been more than a year for Oliveira, I guess, right? But technically speaking, he's still a world champion.
The longest possible reign, Oliveira, you know, he had the best story of anyone that we've ever had winning a world championship, and I don't think that's a controversial take, but greatest story we've ever had, and he gets to reign longer than any other world champion. I
was losing my mind there sitting in the green room when he was playing the finals. Like every series Oliveira played that day, I was like, okay, you know what? Now you're going up against a Hero Marine, then he went up against Raynor, he went up against Hero, and then ultimately in the finals he goes up against Maru. Like every single one of those opponents along the way, I was like, okay, there's no way, right? And then he kept winning, and he kept winning. And I can keep talking about that. I have talked about it at length already, but it's just such an amazing story.
Well, one thing I want to talk about before we start talking about how I was crying in the audience when Oliveira won, Oliveira's opening Marauder. At least a single Marauder in this game, number 1. I don't see concussive shells yet, which is interesting. because generally this like in-base Marauder play, the kind of goal is your opponent's going to run across the map. They're going to have an Adept or something, and you catch it. With the first 2 Marauders, you knock that down, you shut down map presence and make that happen. But for now, doesn't really seem to be a thing, and we're getting ourselves into Widowmine drops with Marauders here. Oliveira is in some way, shape, or form taking the page out of Gumiho's book. Gumiho was doing this back when he came back from military like a year and a half ago. But we don't have concussive, so this makes this extra weird.
Yeah, I don't think you're brave enough here as Nanami to really roam the map with anything. So Oliveira is going to just sit here and, well, apparently march across with the 2 Marauders, but without concussive shells. This is cheap research. He could have certainly afforded it by now, but he's decided to skip it. I'm almost starting to wonder if that was a mistake, but I guess he just wants to go and make a couple of these units and then go for a Widowmine drop on the back of it. Another one of those curveballs, right? Now, he's going to see in just a moment that Stalker is not slowed down. Yeah, shield battery is going to be more than okay, and he doesn't know. That's the thing for Nanami. He doesn't know if concussive is going to be kicking in here because it was delayed, or he just wants to be playing this carefully, I guess. And just once more, confidently goes into the 3rd Nexus off of just 2 gateways.
Yeah, you know, it's this is mathed out, Loco. You send the Marauder across the map, the 2 Marauders, excuse me, across the map without any sort of concussive shells, because it takes about 20% of a shield battery energy, and that 20% of shield battery energy allows you to go and hit a crazy push a minute later when the energy is at 99% instead of 100%, and that 1 extra energy, Loco, that 1 extra energy makes the difference. No, it doesn't. But anyways, Widowmine drop across the map right now. It's got extra Widowmines than you would normally have. It's 3 Widowmines, not 2. But in part, you know, this probably as effective as a 2 Widowmine drop previously would have been, right? With the nerfs to alerts and the splash radius and all of that.
Yeah, it honestly depends on how well Nanami, just like in the previous patch, right? How well he is going to respond against the Widowmine drop. The thing about this particular Widowmine drop, though, is that it's a little bit funky, right? Like this entire early game here from the Terran, it's like he put all of his units in a big hat, and he just shook the head around, and then he just apparently randomized into a couple of Marauders and then a late Widowmine drop. That Widowmine drop, by the way, still just hanging on the far left side of the minimap. You can almost see it on the minimap. It's just a half or so. It's like a rectangle, I guess, but a half of a red square. Looks like units over here are going down. What Oliveira is waiting for is until Nanami is distracted, right? As soon as the Terran is seeing, hey, there's a lot of focus right here on these Stalkers being microed, that's when he's going to commit with that Widowmine drop, and sometimes those drops can just straight up win you the game. Widowmine nerf or not, it's one of those things where if you're not paying attention as Protoss, it can be game over.
Yeah, one of the scary things for Oliveira right now, with everything that he's gone for, he has no tanks. Right? He's got a bunker on the low ground. Stim is done. That's a big deal. But he's got no tanks. He's got no concussive. If this was a 4-gate blink coming out of Nanami, he would be running roughshod on over things. Luckily, I guess, for Oliveira, those extra gateways only really... Actually, does he even have 4? Yeah, he does. So he's moved up to 8 gates now. But those extra gateways only come into the 4 right now. He doesn't really have access to them. So instead of running roughshod over the Terran and making that happen, Oliveira gets away with it. Now he's on the map. Stim is done. Combat shield's done in 10 seconds. Concussive shell's done in 1. And he's going to be able to hit this 6-minute timing. Now, granted, Loco, charge is just about done as well. An 8-gate charge is a really good answer to these early aggressive bio plays.
Absolutely, yeah. But usually those bio plays also do rely on quite a bit of siege tank, like a siege tank play. And we don't really have any of that right here for Oliveira. So a funky build order here from the Chinese Terran player, who still just has that Widowmine drop on the left side of the natural, just hanging out here, waiting until Nanami just takes a tiny little nap in the game, and suddenly it can be absolutely, it can be absolutely over. But anyways, for now, we do just have the 4th Nexus coming up, Robo Bay coming up too. Like, both of these players are ready to strike, but neither of them is doing it.
Yeah, it's like one of those, hey, you know, I'm gonna move. No, you move. No, you move. No, you. It's you know, we're gonna sit here as I accidentally beatbox, but we're gonna sit here and just double feign over each other all over the place. And I love that Nanami's called his bluff. He's like, yeah, you know, you've been posturing a little bit. Great, fine, do what you want to do. I'm comfortable enough on my tech with charge and +1 armor and all of these things. I'm gonna take a 4th base before your 3rd base is even down on location. So I like what Nanami's doing. He's being aggressive here. He will not be able to get anything from the recall or from the warp prism. He is forced to recall that one.
There's the drop. The drop finally goes in. Oh, does he get it? Okay. Couple of probes. Oh, nope, nothing all too crazy. He thought he had him for a moment, right? Now the Terran army starts moving, though. We have that massive red blob on the minimap. This is a tremendous army, Vio. Look at this. Does he have enough? Good force field to slow it down.
Yeah, I was going to say, this position on the map right now, it's so force fieldable. You can just draw. Okay, Warp Prism almost goes down. He stays alive just barely. But this position is so hard for the Terran to push through, even though they got a ton of Widow Mines. And, you know, Charge Lot Stalker against Widow Mines, not very good. By the way, can we talk about this composition out of Oliveira for a second?
Yeah.
6 Widow Mines, 17 Marauders against what Nanami has, until we get even Disruptors out would be really nice. Even against low Colossus counts, this army is so very good against what Nanami has, but Nanami doesn't want to fight, right? Zealots on the other side force the army back time and time again. Don't allow Oliveira to get aggressive. Now, you will lose 1,000 minerals worth of Zealots or whatever it is. You're going to try to catch the army in the middle of the map as well here. This is not a good fight. Force fields get spammed awkwardly, don't do anything. Colossus pops them anyways. And Nanami, not a great 30 seconds.
No, that was certainly not as effective. Maybe the Zealot run by in the main base can get something done. He needs to be very careful. He wants to fight right now. Apparently, he feels like he's got the superior army, but he needs to be very cautious because we've seen so many games. Oh my god, look at these Zealots go, though. We've seen so many games where the Marauders just sort of seem to overwhelm everything. This is right before Ghosts are out, though, and I think that's what Nanami is thinking of. Ghosts are, well, not facing against Archons or Templar, but they're still really good against clumped-up Zealots as well. I just don't see how in a straight-up fight, Nanami is going to be able to win against that Bio Ball. Colossi are decent normally, but I don't think that they're the preferred choice against such a Marauder-heavy army.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, right? We talked about no Ghost. There's also very little, 2 Vikings on the map right now, very little anti-Colossus. Like, you'd love to have 3, you'd love to have 4, but even just sitting here at 2 is so much siege damage available to yourself. So for now, Widow Mines are getting shelled down, pressure on this third base, Vikings starting to get added in more and more. The Stalkers are going to try to target them down. They're not knocking them down just yet, but the Colossus, the Guardian Shield's actually doing a really nice job. But both Colossus are dead now. Stalkers fighting against Marauders is never really the play you want, but maybe there's just enough gateway units right now, and it seems like there is. 18 SCVs fall. The Marauders, they're going to have to run through this. Nanami has to back up, but he's got a 40 worker lead right now, Loco. His economy is going like gangbusters here. And yeah, the Colossus went down. A lot of the gateway units went down. The momentum that Nanami's been able to build into this game is so nice. Back up, refill, do it again.
Yeah, that fight actually went better than I thought it would. He was going up against a Terran player who's already finished up +2 there during that fight. +2 infantry weapons, that is. So usually that's the moment where Terran's like, okay, perfect. This is when we want to fight. But the Viking count right there just not quite good enough. And even though he did kill all those Colossi eventually, the Colossi got so much work done. And now Oliveira, his heart is going to sink when he realizes, okay, wait, there's another base? When you're playing 3-base Terran and you realize, wait a second, this is a 5-base Protoss, you know that you need to get something done here. And you need to get it done quickly. Love this Zealot run by into the main base again, just drops them off. And they're going to be able to slice up whatever they can. If Nanami can hold this counterattack right now from Oliveira, I think he's got the game in the bag.
Yeah, 86 workers to 36 is a significant deficit. And yeah, he's not even going to try with the Vikings going down. You know, he has no answer to the Colossus. And hey, Nanami, 1-1.
Honestly, he did so very smoothly too, right? Not really running into a whole lot of issues here. Maybe this was a strange opener from Oliveira with the 2 Marauders going around the map and then the Widow Mine drop that didn't really commit. But honestly, he handled it all very well. He clearly knew where his focus needed to be, and he didn't really run into any issues there. Impressively played. Considering game number 1 was a very cheesy 1-base all-in from Oliveira, this is one of those moments where Nanami is going to feel pretty good about himself, right? I mean, everybody can lose to a 1-base all-in every once in a while. I mean, those are mistakes that can be made, and if you're not super careful, sure, you can lose a game like that. But game number 2, solid macro game, didn't really make a whole lot of errors, and I think he's going to be feeling good here going into the final match of this series.
Yeah, I think so. That's actually, I mean, I think we mentioned this last season. Like Nanami, he's not there yet. Right, he's not the best player in China. He's not the best player, in Asia. That still probably is Oliveira, but he's got promise. And one of the things that I love watching specifically these Chinese Protoss players, I don't know why it is specifically the Chinese Protoss players, but for whatever reason it is, they go, and they are so good at being economically aggressive. You know, we saw Nanami go. He took a 4th base at 7 minutes, a 5th base at 9. And if you let them get away with it, they're going to win the game, right? You just have so much money. Now, maybe that's why Oliveira decided to get aggressive in game 1, run across the map, because he knew Nanami was going to try to take the entire map. But Loco, we're moving into Golden Aura for game 3. You want to talk a map where you can be greedy as hell? This got to be the best option.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a lot of expansions that are nice and tucked away on Golden Aura, so I think Nanami will be more than happy to play the same style again. He did play the same build pretty much exactly 1-2-1 in game number 1 and game number 2. So I wonder if maybe Oliveira is looking at it and he's like, yo, maybe I can go for this particular strategy and this timing attack and I can shut it down. But honestly, I'm liking Nanami's chances here.
Yeah. Give me Colossus, make me win game, I guess. But anyways, in the bottom right, looking really good in the macro game, actually. Just tons and tons of probes. I think it's like 90 at the end of game 2, 86, something like that. In the blue, it's Nanami.
And his opponent in the top left-hand corner of the map. He is Oliveira. I'm very impressed, though, Bio, by these Protoss players from the Asian region that are really, working on getting their name out there, right? We already saw Lemon, we talked about him earlier, qualify for the remainder of this tournament, and now Nanami is looking incredibly solid as well against one of the world's greatest Terran players. I think both of those players are names that we haven't really seen as much of, right? We always talk about the Koreans and the Europeans and the North Americans too, but there's a bunch of really good players in the Asian region as well. I think a lot of people would have assumed that Oliveira would get a pretty smooth 3-0 win in series, but I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if Nanami ends up winning it.
Yeah, you know, you talked about Lemon, Aishi, Nanami here looking pretty solid. My favorite player out of the Asian region is Firefly as well. Yep. Like, he showed such cool strats, actually taking maps off Oliveira in the upper bracket semis last year. Ended up playing in the finals and lost there too. But Firefly hasn't even moved on to the playoffs yet. So you know what, Loco, they told me that Protoss is just underpowered. The Protoss has not won a premier tournament in years, so it doesn't count, and it's horrible and it's lagging like hell. Well, no one told that to the Chinese Protoss.
Yeah. There's no denying, though, that like StarCraft 2 in general is very top heavy, right? Like, it's always interesting to see players compete and then suddenly they have to they have to face the final boss. I think that's a way of putting it, right? You go up against somebody like Serral, suddenly the game looks like it's played very differently. And the same can be said for other top tier players out there, for example, like Clem and Maru and Hero and Max, right? We can keep naming them, but that's where I feel like your skill really gets properly tested. But Oliveira, I would certainly consider him in the upper echelons of StarCraft 2 talent, and there's no denying that, Nanami is looking good against him. Now, he is playing quite predictably here, right? Once more, going for the Twilight Council opener. I wouldn't have minded seeing something a little different. Oliveira, once again, putting all of his Terra units in one big hat. He shook it up, and apparently what's rolling out this time around is a bunch of Reapers. We're going to have 3 in total here at the very least, and then also a Hellion coming up.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is going to be pretty aggressive. Probably 3 Reapers, 3-5 Reapers, 2 to 3 Hellions to get across the map. This is something where Nanami, he needs a wall, right? You need to make sure that you have gateways in that wall. You need to make sure you know what's up. As the Adept gets a really good scout off, sees that, yes, there are more Reapers on the map being produced. There are more Hellions getting made here. So wall's going to have to go down. And actually, really importantly here, the Adept doesn't take any. It takes damage, but doesn't die. So you have that more anti-light damage, right? So we're going to see a Robo down to the wall. We're going to see a gateway down to the wall. It has to be a full wall here. And I think that does. Yeah, Hellions can't get in. So 3 Reapers, 2 Hellions. They're going to try to target this gateway down. They may eventually knock it down, and there's going to be the cancel. So now KD8 charges are scary. You can try to bump your way in, but already 1 Hellion is dead. Already 1 Reaper will fall down, but there's no shield battery, so they're going to try to knock on top of the Stalker. They're going to get it. But the problem is your goal, trading a Stalker for all of this when you don't get any probes, or you maybe get like 1. That's not really what Oliveira. He's going to get a second. Very nice there, but when you commit this heavily to this early game aggression as Oliveira, you want more than 2 probes in the Stalker.
At least he made a command center on the back of it this time around, right? Unlike game number 1, obviously a very different situation, but I'm not loving this start here for the Terran. It's one of those moments where you kind of want to just get the momentum rolling, right? You want to start running away with the win over the next couple minutes, but Nanami held that pretty smoothly. At this point, his third Nexus is maybe a third or so of the way done. Blink is going to finish up. That's usually when Protoss players will start feeling a whole lot more comfortable. I think this is now Nanami's game to play, right? He can do whatever he likes here moving forward. There's obviously quite a few varieties that he can follow this up with. We'll have to see if he decides to go into Colossi once again. I don't think it would be a bad choice. Oliveira, by the way, also investing in Cloaked Banshee here. If that also gets nothing done, I mean, how many observers do we have? We do have 2. He sees it. I mean, I really like this for him. Yeah, look at him. Move the observer immediately. Stalker should be here. They have Blink done.
Yeah, this doesn't get
perfect.
It's gonna get 1 probe just because there's no shield battery and you can't really stop without a ton of stalkers. But 1 probe for a Banshee when you've committed this heavily to all this early game tech is just not great. Now Oliveira, this is all in. Yeah, we can call it. Yeah, he's got 2 bases. Yeah, he's got more barracks on the way and eBays and things like that. He has committed so much to this early game pressure, Banshees and Marine and everything, and he hasn't gotten anything. Doesn't mean that this is not scary. 2 tanks, Marines, Banshee against Stalkers, right? Charge is not on the way. Is a bit of a scary situation, especially with this third base as it is. I mean, getting down the ramp, good luck. But if he doesn't get anything done with this, he's pretty much dead. We're gonna see the Banshee go down very quickly. Stalkers get on top of the tank. Probes are gonna get pulled on top of this. Nanami knows he crushes this. He wins the game, but a lot of Stalkers are going down. That is still plentiful damage. 5 probes die. Marines are still here. I think this is still good enough, Loco. This is still enough to justify everything that's happened.
I'm a little surprised we didn't see any force fields there, because he did specifically warp in a couple sentries, and then we didn't really use the sentries. They ended up tickling the... well, I guess they deal a little... Yeah, I guess not so much, actually, compared to what they used to do in the previous patch. Against shields, there's not a whole lot of shields in Terran units, but... Anyways, they could have certainly helped out a little bit more. Maybe he was hoping for a Guardian shield or something like it, but looks like Nanami is just happy to continue macroing here. I think in total, yeah, he's lost 10 probes right now. I think that's very respectable, considering that Terran does not actually have a third command center here. So this is effectively now turning into a 2-base all-in from Oliveira. Against this next wave of Terran, Nanami will have charge done as well, and you already brought it up. It is such a good upgrade to have against these Terran attacks.
Oh man, it's weird you see this, because on the one hand, a lot of charge lots against a lot of bio, the bio kind of shreds, especially once they have upgrades. Marines annihilate charge lots. But before this like 150 supply mark, give or take, right? Before the Terran really starts to boom their supply, a bunch of charge lots on even supply, maybe even down a little bit in army supply compared to the Terran, they do really, really nicely, especially with this +1 armor being done. So Nanami here, we're going to see him get his 4th base pretty quickly, because while Oliveira does want to go for a follow-up, I think that's absolutely true, right? This is 5 racks. Actually, maybe it's 4 racks. Yeah, no, this is 5 racks. There's no third command center. The timing is now that Oliveira can move out. There was about a minute where Nanami knew that he could just macro up like a god. There's nothing he's got to worry about, because tanks move across the map, Banshees move across the map. Stim's not done. You know there's no way Stim's done, because so much gas has been committed, and now Oliveira's moving out, and guess what? Zealot's in his main base. He's gonna have to make a decision. Do you all in? Do you pull the boys here? Like, what do? You're stuck between a rock and a hard place, and that just doesn't feel good.
Yeah, in the meantime, he decided to commit. The SCVs are coming across the map too here, VO. He's gonna force field this and just slow it down to the best of his abilities. There is an Immortal in the mix too here for Nanami. If he can defend this Terran attack, he should win the series and move on to the next stage of the event. In the meantime, the rest of the Terran SCVs are being absolutely demolished. He could even give up on this third right now. I wouldn't mind that whatsoever, but I wonder if he's maybe, growing a little attached to it.
I think you just let even if you lose the third base, you just let it last as long as possible. Oliveira is literally not mining right now. 0 mineral income at the moment. Maybe he's gonna drop some mules in a second. But this army, there's no rally that's gonna happen. There's no, he's actually on a base trade time. He's gonna have to lift his buildings at some point, because the Zealots in the main base are just not being handled. So Zealots coming in from the backside right now. A couple are gonna get stuck behind the sentries just a little bit, but I mean, you gotta do so much here. The tanks are dead. Nanami, he moves on to the playoffs. Our 3rd Protoss now. Look at that.
That